My friends, I'm Pastor Ben Hayes from First Baptist Church, Dadeville, Alabama, bringing you our thought for the day on this Wednesday morning. It's Tuesday for me. I'm pre-recording this because by the time you're watching this, we will have just finished Sonia's first PT. So appreciate your prayers. But right now, we're so grateful for this day. We got a lot going on today, so keep that in mind. And let's pick up in verse 8 of 1 Peter chapter 3. Remember, Peter's been talking about the family. He's been talking about servants who are part of the family, talking about husbands and wives. And now he comes to verse 8 and he says, finally, all of you be of one mind. Who's he talking about? He's talking about the family, but he's also talking about the whole church, the family of God, because that's who we are. We're brothers and sisters in Christ. And so we are together as a family. He says, finally, all of you be of one mind, that mind of Christ, mentioned this yesterday, having compassion for one another. I like that word that is used for compassion there. In the Greek, it's splanchnizomai, and it means from the innermost depths of your being, from your bowels, actually, is what it means. And it's like when you really are concerned about something and, your stomach hurts, that kind of thing. That's the idea here, to have that kind of feelings towards one another, wanting to make sure that each other is doing well, making sure that everyone is taken care of and is experiencing the blessings that God has for them. Now, that's how we're supposed to be towards each other, have that kind of compassion towards our brothers and sisters in Christ. Then he says, love as brothers. Now, listen, this love that he's talking about is important. It's that kind of love that we have in our families. The kind of love that says, I can disagree with my brother and we can have a little argument, but don't let anybody from the outside come in. That kind of togetherness, that kind of unity. That's what he's talking about. Have that kind of love that says you're my brother for life. This is be tenderhearted. That's a problem for a lot of folks, to be tenderhearted. You wouldn't think it would be that hard, but there's some people who just don't have that tender heart. Things don't bother them when something goes wrong. They don't have that compassion, that caring that they need to have. And then simply be courteous. Be courteous. If you can't do anything else, be courteous. No, that's not what he says. All of these things we're supposed to do. And then he says, be courteous. And that just means respect one another and be nice to one another. And, one of the things that I like to think about as I read these passages is it's that acrostic for joy. Jesus first, others second, yourselves last. If we would do that, if we would live that way, it would change the dynamic in our lives. It would change the dynamic in our families. It would change the dynamic in our churches. Just to be courteous to one another. Now, he kind of explains this in verse 9. Not returning evil for evil or reviling for reviling, but on the contrary, blessing, knowing that you are called to this, that you may inherit a blessing. And this is the thing. So many times when somebody hurts us, first thing we want to do is hurt them back. Or if somebody hurts a friend of ours, we want to take up the fight for them and hurt others. And we want to make sure everybody knows how wrong that person was, and we speak evil of them. That's what he's talking about here. This evil for evil and this reviling for reviling. When somebody does something we disagree with, we're not supposed to go out and spread the news to everybody and tell them how wrong they were and how horrible they are. We're supposed to go to that person and say, hey, let's work this out. Let's figure this out. And if it's two other people that have the problem, we go to those people and say, let's get together and see if we can't help you. Instead of jumping to conclusions and assuming the worst and returning evil for evil or reviling for reviling. Instead, we're to share the blessing. We're to respond to each other with blessing because we were called to this. Do you see that? There at the very end of verse 9, we were called to this. We were called to be peacemakers. Jesus said this. He said, blessed are the peacemakers, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That is the truth of the day that we need to understand. And that word peacemaker doesn't mean that we're just people of peace. It means we are actively waging peace. We are working to create peace in our world, in our community. And we were called to this, not by Peter, not by Paul, not by the apostles. We were called to this by Jesus Christ himself to be this people of blessing. And we do this that we may inherit a blessing. Now, this is not talking about a works-based salvation. It's not. Because salvation is by the grace of God through faith in Jesus Christ alone. So he's not talking about inheriting that salvation. That salvation is ours as believers. And there's nothing that can change that. The blessing is that we have the love of God, the peace of God, the presence of God, the forgiveness of God, the grace, all of that working together in our lives to provide for us that abundant life that we so desperately, desperately desire. Think about that today. Be a blessing and get a blessing. See you back here tomorrow.